Now, as most of you know, I love animation. I've loved animation since the moment I've opened my eyes. From Dragon Ball Z to Ninja Turtles, Transformers to now. But something I love about animation, Japanese animation specifically, is... Now, I'm no animation expert or anything like that, obviously, but here is a little explanation on what that is. Remember when Naruto vs. Sasuke turned into this? Or how in Dragon Ball Super went from this to that? Or that time in One Piece when... Damn it, Toei. That is Sakuga. It's when a scene has noticeably higher quality. There's also like Sakuga animators, which are key animators or something. Is a lot of info, blah, 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 and I'm not an expert in that. And one reason why I love it so much is because it's just so dang cool. Sakuga interests me so much because of how much it can enhance an anime. The way the character art and the movement instantly upgrades and all the different techniques that are used are just so fun to witness. So that's why today I'm going to be showing you a few of my favorite Sakuga techniques, starting with probably the most well-known one. Oh my god. Now, you can literally take the worst fight scene ever, give it impact frames, and it'll look that much nicer. For example, Meliodas vs. Escanor from Seven Deadly Sins. I know it's talked about a lot, but it's a very sad fight, which sucks because the build-up behind it was super hype. Now slap some little black and white explosions and boom, peak fiction. But what is an impact frame exactly? Impact frames are keyframes that are extra stylized and mostly monochromatic. They usually only happen for about a second, since they're meant to add this kind of intensity and emphasis to a scene. They add this really epic boom that no other animation technique can really do, and usually only happens during fight scenes or super epic and intense moments. You know you're watching a really dope fight scene when a white background with super rough black line work comes out of nowhere. Especially when those black and white explosions are coming from studio bones. Bro. Mob Psycho 100, My Hero Academia, Full Metal Alchemist, and Brotherhood, the list goes on. Impact frames are probably my favorite Sakuga technique, if that's what it's called, simply because of how rough the drawings look. Especially when you slow it down, because when you're watching that moment and see those frames, you think, dang, that was super cool, that was really intense. But if you look back, slow it down, and just look at each individual frame and see the details, and depending on what show you're watching, the use of color, it's crazy how much detail goes into these. Like Saitama vs. Boros from One Punch Man. These frames are just insane and have so much detail, even though they'll only be shown for like a fraction of a second. Honestly, I could talk about impact frames all day, but we don't have time for that, because next up is... Why fire one missile when you can launch a whole circus? Originally created by Ichiro Atano when he worked on Mobile Suit Gundam, the Itano Circus basically is when a scene has a bunch of projectiles all moving at once to a target, and the target will try avoiding them by like flying or spinning around, making the projectiles spin and loop around. This technique is mostly used in mecha anime since they're giant robots with guns and missiles, but it's also in a lot of superpower anime like Dragon Ball. One example of Dragon Ball using the Itano Circus is in Dragon Ball Super Broly, where Gogeta was the target and Broly was the one shooting all the projectiles. But it's not always energy blasts or missiles. There's a lot of times where the Itano Circus is used even more uniquely. Now, I'm a fan of this effect because it's just really cool seeing not just one, but a bunch of projectiles all moving at once in a unique way. They're not just going in a straight line, they're going all over the place as the camera goes around and follows the projectiles. And if it's like a missile or something, you see all the trails of smoke and stuff, which is also super difficult to animate and that much more impressive. Because usually an Itano Circus, from what I've seen in anime, can have like up to 10 plus projectiles moving all at once in different ways. It's a super impressive technique that is just awesome to look at every single time. And now for our third and final technique. Kind of like impact frames, even if you don't know the term, you'll probably recognize this when you see it, if you've seen a good amount of action anime. If you don't know what this is, it's cubes. Popularized by Yutaka Nakamura, one of my personal favorite animators, Utapon cubes are just debris from explosions stylized to look like a bunch of cool blocks. The point of this is to make debris look aesthetically pleasing and satisfying because of how simple the design is and how easy it is to draw. Honestly, I can't really think of much to say besides that it just looks cool. I know I've said that for each and every one of these techniques, but this one just looks kind of nice because it is aesthetically pleasing. It's literally just a bunch of blotches flying all over the place. They add a good amount of perspective and intensity to an explosion or fight scenes, and that's pretty much it. I think the first time I realized what Utapon cubes were, and when I realized, oh, those are a bunch of blocks, was during the first My Hero Academia tournament arc when Deku and Todoroki fought. I remember watching that fight and just being like, yeah, that's a lot of blotch, that's cool. But yeah, out of the 3 Sakuga techniques I've shown you today, I'd have to say that impact frames are still my number 1, just because of how much detail goes into it, even though it's only there for such a short amount of time. And I could have made a video just talking about Sakuga as a whole and not just like a couple of my favorite techniques, but that video would be so insanely long, and I feel like it's already been done so many times on YouTube. But yeah, at the end of the day, Sakuga in general, with all its techniques and its specific animators, is just impressive and amazing to look at. And that is why I made this video. I made this video to show you the beauty of Sakuga. I don't know why I said that so dramatically.